The lights come up on an empty stage, a microphone standing alone in the center. The quiet hum of an expectant crowd fills the air, and the name Haggard echoes once again through the world of country music. But this time, it isn't Merle Haggard stepping up to the mic. The latest stories, the breaking headlines, belong to his sons, Noel Haggard and Ben Haggard, two men navigating the powerful legacy left behind by their father while trying to define who they are in today's country scene. And lately, their names have been everywhere, with new moves, sudden surprises, and emotional reflections making waves far beyond the usual music press. For anyone who knows the history of American country music, Merle Haggard's name is not just familiar, it's sacred. His voice carried the weight of working-class struggles, outlaw independence, and raw human emotion. When he passed in 2016, he left behind not only a catalog of songs that defined a generation, but also children who grew up in the shadow of that towering figure. Among them, Noel and Ben have stepped forward in different ways, each carrying pieces of that legacy, but shaping it according to their own journeys. Today, both men are in the headlines for reasons that reveal the complex and often turbulent lives of those who inherit both the gift and the burden of greatness. Noel Haggard's story has always been one of resilience. At 61, his life reflects both the opportunities and the hardships of being Merle's son. In the late 1990s, Noel had his shot at carving out a place of his own. Signed with Atlantic Records, he released One Lifetime, a debut album filled with heartfelt tracks that leaned on traditional sounds and real-world storytelling. Songs like Once You Learn and Tell Me Something Bad About Tulsa gave listeners a taste of his voice, distinct yet familiar, carrying the unmistakable echoes of his father's influence. Critics praised the authenticity, but as the years went on, Noel struggled to find consistent footing in a music industry increasingly dominated by pop country and polished commercial acts. The headlines surrounding Noel in recent months, however, show a man reflecting deeply, not only on his own career, but also on the legacy of his father. In interviews, Noel has spoken candidly about growing up under the shadow of a man who was both a musical icon and a complicated parent. His words carry both love and honesty, admitting that Merle's life on the road and his battles with personal demons shaped Noel's own struggles. Now, at this later stage in life, Noel is finding that audiences want to hear his perspective, not just the music, but the man behind the name. Recent performances, intimate shows, and even podcast appearances have revealed a Noel who is ready to open up in ways he once resisted. The latest buzz about him isn't tied to chart success, but to raw storytelling, the kind of soul-bearing confessions that fans feel are part of the Haggard DNA. Ben Haggard, on the other hand, is living a different chapter, one defined by youth, promise, and the weight of expectation. At just 32, Ben has become one of the most talked-about second-generation performers in country music. As the youngest son of Merle, he grew up not only hearing the music but playing it. By his late teens, Ben was already a fixture on stage with the Strangers, Merle's longtime band. His guitar work, his backing vocals, and his stage presence marked him as more than just a child tagging along. Fans began to notice his talent, and after Merle's passing, Ben's role expanded. He wasn't just playing songs anymore, he was carrying the torch. This year has seen Ben making headlines in big ways. Perhaps the most significant move was his signing with BMI, a step that signals serious intent about building a career that stands on its own. Industry insiders have noted that this is more than a formality. It's a declaration that Ben is ready to step out of his father's shadow and position himself as a songwriter, performer, and artist with his own voice. For fans who have followed him since his earliest performances, this feels like the beginning of something bigger. But it isn't just contracts and industry moves that have people talking. Ben recently teamed up with rising traditionalist Jesse Daniel for a duet titled Tomorrow's Good Old Days. The song is more than a collaboration, it's a statement of purpose. With its rich harmonies and timeless message, the track celebrates the beauty of authenticity in country music, reminding listeners that the so-called good old days aren't just behind us. They can still be created today. Critics have praised Ben's contribution, noting that his vocals carry an honesty that feels both modern and steeped in tradition. The release has fueled excitement about what his next projects may be, with speculation about a solo record growing louder. Still, the life of a working musician is rarely predictable. Just as the headlines began building momentum around Ben's rising profile, news broke of a concert shakeup. He was scheduled to open for Easton Corbin at a summer bash in Minnesota when travel complications grounded his flight. The cancellation was sudden, and though fans were disappointed, it also underscored the reality of life on the road. Plans change, shows fall apart, and even the children of legends face the same unpredictable challenges. Replacement acts stepped in, but the buzz online showed just how many people were eager to see Ben in person. If anything, the mishap only amplified anticipation for his next live performance. What makes the latest developments especially compelling is the way Noel and Ben's paths keep intersecting. Despite the age gap and the different stages of life they're in, the two brothers often appear together for tribute performances honoring their father. Whether on the Opry stage or in smaller venues, moments of them standing side by side, guitars in hand, bring audiences to tears. Recently, they appeared together at the Opry for a podcast taping, a night that reminded fans of the unique power that comes when the Haggard brothers unite. Social media lit up with photos and videos, many fans commenting that hearing their voices together brought back memories of Merle while still pointing toward the future. In some ways, the dual headlines about Noel and Ben are less about individual careers and more about a family narrative still unfolding. The Haggard name carries with it a mythology in country music, but for Noel and Ben, it also carries responsibility. When Noel opens up about his father's imperfections, when Ben takes the stage with his guitar and plays licks that sound eerily familiar, they are both extending the story of who Merle Haggard was and what he left behind. Fans aren't just consuming news about them, they're rooting for them, following their progress like a family drama that plays out in public. The breaking news about both men also touches on a deeper theme: the challenge of carving out identity in the shadow of a giant. Noel has spent years finding ways to tell his story without simply being Merle's son. Ben is at the beginning of that journey, facing the same questions his brother did decades earlier. Both know that audiences will always compare them to their father, but both also know that authenticity, the very thing that defined Merle, is the only way forward. Whether it's Noel's candid reflections or Ben's choice to collaborate with an artist like Jesse Daniel, each step they take seems aimed at honoring tradition while insisting on individuality. Right now, the headlines are filled with speculation. Will Noel record new music, perhaps drawing on the life experiences he's now willing to talk about openly? Will Ben finally release a full solo album? Or will he continue building momentum through collaborations and tribute performances? What does the BMI signing really mean for his future? Touring, publishing, perhaps a major label deal down the line? And when the two brothers join forces, could there be a larger family project in the works? Something that formally ties their names together in a lasting way? What's clear is that the Haggard story is not finished. In fact, the breaking news suggests that it's entering a new chapter, one in which Noel and Ben carry the torch together and apart, navigating the tricky terrain of honoring a legacy while building their own. Their father's music taught millions to find dignity in struggle, to sing honestly about life's highs and lows. Now his sons are discovering that their own stories resonate too, not because they mimic Merle, but because they are unafraid to live truthfully in his shadow. As the stage lights dim and the echoes of applause fade, the camera lingers on two figures, one older, one younger, holding guitars and standing side by side. The headlines may be breaking now, but the story they're telling is one that stretches from the past into the future, one note, one word, one headline at a time. But the headlines surrounding Noel and Ben Haggard are not just about music. They're also about identity, family, and the way the past keeps shaping the present. For Noel, stepping back into the spotlight at this stage of life feels almost like redemption. In candid moments on stage, he has admitted that there were years when he avoided public performances, years when he questioned whether there was still a place for him in the country music landscape. Now, as audiences grow more nostalgic for authentic voices, his name is surfacing again, attached to shows where fans are eager not only to hear the songs but to listen to his stories. The breaking news about Noel is that he isn't fading away. Instead, he's leaning in, offering the honesty and grit that people feel has been missing from much of modern country music. Ben, meanwhile, represents possibility. At 32, he's at the crossroads his father once stood at, facing the choice of whether to play it safe or to gamble everything on carving out his own voice. His recent collaboration with Jesse Daniel suggests that he's leaning toward the latter. By aligning himself with artists who value roots, storytelling, and stripped-down production, Ben is signaling where his compass points. It's not toward the glossy charts of Nashville pop country, but toward something rawer, truer. That decision alone has people talking, because it could make him the bridge between generations, the one who brings Merle's authenticity into a modern era without losing its soul. And then there's the bond between the brothers themselves. When Noel and Ben share a stage, the energy shifts. Fans who remember Merle's concerts say that hearing his sons harmonize feels like a haunting echo of the past, a reminder that bloodlines carry sound as much as memory. Their tribute shows are not just performances. They're experiences where grief, nostalgia, and hope all collide. Recently, footage of them singing together went viral online, not because it was slickly produced, but because it was real. In the comments, fans from multiple generations wrote about how it felt to see the Haggard name alive and thriving, a living link between the man they lost and the music that still matters. Breaking headlines also mean that speculation runs wild. Rumors swirl about a potential joint album, something that would allow Noel and Ben to formally present themselves as a duo, not just as sons of Merle, but as artists standing shoulder to shoulder. Others whisper about the possibility of a documentary series, one that would finally allow both men to tell their side of what it was like to grow up in the Haggard household. If those projects materialize, they would almost certainly capture the attention of mainstream outlets, pulling Noel and Ben from the back pages of music blogs into center stage headlines. What makes their story resonate so strongly right now is the timing. Country music is in the midst of a cultural tug-of-war. On one side are the slick, radio-friendly acts that dominate the charts. On the other are the traditionalists who argue for steel guitars, fiddles, and stories that reflect real life. Noel and Ben, by virtue of who they are, sit squarely in the second camp. They don't have to argue for authenticity. Their very existence, their bloodline, their sound is proof of it. That authenticity is precisely what audiences are hungry for, and it explains why news about them spreads so quickly, why even a canceled show becomes a headline, why a duet release gets treated like a major event. Perhaps the most moving part of these latest developments is the way both brothers seem committed not to competing with each other, but to lifting each other up. In interviews, Ben speaks of his admiration for Noel's journey, while Noel describes Ben as the natural heir to their father's gifts. That mutual respect, rare in a business often defined by rivalry, makes their joint story even more compelling. They are not trying to replace Merle Haggard. They're trying to honor him by being themselves, and in doing so, they are showing the world that the Haggard legacy is not static. It is alive, evolving, and, judging by the latest headlines, very much worth paying attention to. The stage, the press, the social media buzz, all of it now swirls around two men who were once just Merle's boys. Today, they are headline makers in their own right. Tomorrow, they might be the standard bearers of a movement that keeps traditional country alive. And as each new announcement drops, as each new headline breaks, fans are reminded that the story of Noel and Ben Haggard is still being written. One song, one performance, one headline at a time.